Hello everybody and welcome to my first completely 100% improvised I wanted to say YouTube tutorial, but I mean Photoshop tutorial. And this one is going to be on how to cut out images in Photoshop, which is of course something that we're often required to do for whatever project we're working on. And so today I am going to show you several different methodologies that you could use. We'll start with the simple obvious ones, some that always work, and then later on go to more advanced options. I will tell you how they work, why they work, and what the thought behind them is. And then I hope you learn a lot today. I have no clue how long this is going to take, so bear with me. So what I have here is I just imported or created a new document with this Iron Man image. It's a pretty large image. You zoom into the actual pixel size, you can see it's quite detailed. We like it, it's cool. Iron Man is always cool. Just for your information, if you look here to the right, we can see we have our Iron Man layer and a background layer. Now just to be sure, if I were to fill up my background layer with whatever gradient I have, so let's zoom to fit the screen. Just make a rainbow background quickly. You can hold shift to make it straight. We can see that actually we have the white background. So what we would want is the white to be gone, to just have Iron Man cover the background. Now the first technique that we're going to use is actually a very straightforward one. It's time consuming, but it works always, and it's doing it by hand, just manual cutting. And there's several ways to do it which gives you the same result. I'm just going to cover a few of them. Depending on the image that you're working with, you might prefer one over the other, but this is how it works. One is just by erasing what you don't want. So what you can do is you can go here and you can click on the eraser tool. Make sure it's the eraser. If you right click on the icon, you can see there's also a background erase tool and a magic erase tool. Background doesn't work, magic might work. I don't generally work with those, but just click the erase tool. And we can, if you click, oh, I'm in the wrong layer. I'm erasing my background now. Control Z. As you can see, we can get rid of the background. So this isn't really quick, so what I will just do is increase the size. I right clicked, that's how I got this screen, and I just increased the size to something more comfortable. And always make sure the hardness is full on, because we don't want this. We want to be hard. So what we can just do is start by simply getting rid of most of the image. Like that. And as you can see, I'm just going to do a part. What you might see is that it's sort of when I click, hold, and drag, is that it creates these blobs. It doesn't make one straight line. That's because of a stock setting in your brush tool. If you want to change that, normally there's a toolbar here, but you could go to Window and then Brush, and it actually pops up here also. You can see here if you go to brush tip shape that the spacing is set to 25%. So if we were to make that 1, we can get this smooth flow right there. It's actually pretty neat, because if I take a smaller one, for example this big, I just click somewhere, and after I clicked, I can let go, just hold shift and click somewhere else, it draws a straight line. You can do this to very quickly move from point to point and get sort of the semi-smooth cutout. But as you can see, it's very time consuming, like this. It does work. It's a little bit doubtful whether this is a highlight, actually, I'm not sure. But as you might be able to see, this is a very time-consuming process that doesn't really... I mean, sometimes it's the only way to go, because the shape is so weird that you cannot do some of the smarter techniques that I will show in a second. So this might not be the way to go. But it might work. And you can then later on get rid of this stuff here. Another way to do this is by selection. What I like to do is I like to go here. Oh, wrong one, this one. And as you can see, I get my lasso tool, but there's also a polygonal lasso tool, and it allows me to click, and it drags these lines. Now what happens if I double click it, or click where I started, but double click is easier, is that it just finishes the loop with a straight line. So if I click here, finish the curve, and then I can press delete. So if we zoom in a little bit, we can use this to very quickly sort of give us this result. Now, as you can see, the line spawns at the tip of my arrow. If you don't like that, you could press caps lock. You can see that your mouse cursor change to this crosshair, which might be a little bit more comfortable, so you know exactly where the point will end up. And here's a small tip. As you can see, I am dragging, and you might make an error. You might, for example, click somewhere wrong, and think, oh shit, I want to correct that last one. Well, it's not possible. When you do the line drawing, and I click wrong, I cannot undo that last step, as far as I know at least. So what you want to do is every once in a while just go back to roughly where you started and delete, so that if you make a mistake, you don't have to retrace the whole robot or the whole image that you were trying to cut out. Otherwise, you might find yourself really frustrated just by making that one mistake. So for example, if I accidentally do this and I double click accidentally, now I have this selection, which is totally worthless. So I have to undo this. So I do Control D to deselect, and now I have to do it all again. So if you don't want that to be too crucial, make sure that every once in a while, when you've finished a complex part, for example here, you just go around real quick, and just delete that part, etc. And then when you have done this, as you can see, you can easily get rid of this whole thing here, like that. And as you can see, one of the advantages of this technique is that it always works. As long as you can see the line, you can delete it, and the computer might not always be smart enough or good enough to tell the difference, so that might be a problem. So this is of course the, between quotation marks, stupid way of doing things, but the very reliable way of doing things. If we get into gradients or smooth decays, we'll get into that later. For now, we'll just focus on hard edges. Another technique that you might want to do is a little step forward. It's a little bit more intelligent. Let me just get rid of this part here. But it might not always work. So the more you're going to let Photoshop do for you, the greater the risk that it's not going to work. So for now, we're going to pick the here we go to the Magic Wand tool. So it might be set onto this icon here. We might want to go to the Magic Wand tool. And the Magic Wand tool basically starts where you begin, that pixel, and then it just propagates outwards and says, okay, does this next pixel resemble the pixel I started with within a certain tolerance? And if it does, it also adds that one, and then it just moves out until it is done with every pixel whole image. So if I click here now with my tolerance set to 32, which is standard, and I click here, you can actually see it does a very good trace. So in this case, if I delete it, I'm done. You see that? It's a very good result that I get here. Now this is not always possible, so let me just undo that. Sometimes you might want to work a little with your tolerance. For example, set your tolerance to 1, which if I click gives you the following result. Now you might not really see big difference at first, but in some images the difference is actually pretty big. In this case, for this image, it works fine, but this might not always work. So you might want to work with the tolerance. It might also be that it works for a big part of your image, but not the whole image. So some parts are a little bit more tough. In that case, what you could do is you could go to your quick selection tool, and essentially what it does is you can click on certain areas and it just sort of fills that part up, and every time I click something extra it sort of spreads out like that, which might give you a fairly good result. But again, because this image is so good, we're allowed to do this. So let's just do half of the image. So what I will do is I will click, use the Magic Wand tool again, set the tolerance to 32. Also, anti-aliasing is on. If you turn that off, you get an ugly result. It's very sharp around the edges. You can see that here. So with anti-aliasing on, that might be prevented for not everything, but a decent amount. Oops, anti-aliasing on. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove some of the selection and delete. So we have done this part now. Now I'm going to show you another way to do the other part. And this is a specifically good way of doing this when you have a problem where your edges aren't as hard. So you're having this weird gradient to the outside world and it doesn't really work for you. How do we solve this problem? Now it's a little bit of a strange workaround to do it like this, but it works great for some images. What you do is the following. You take your layer here and you copy it once by pressing Ctrl J. As you can see, I have two now. They're exact copies of each other. Now what I'm going to do first is I'm going to make this into a black and white image. So essentially what that means is I'm going to desaturate it. We don't necessarily have to, by the way. We could also do it without that. Well, let's do it without it. Let's just take this image. You know what? Actually, we don't even have to copy this image this way. Maybe sometimes we have to do some pre-editing, but in this case we don't. We just copy the image. So we select the layer, Control A selects the whole, all the pixels, Control C, then go to channels. Now channels is a little bit of a weird thing. It's basically, it shows you what the image looks like if we project only one color of the RGB colors that's on every pixel. So this is the red value of every pixel. This is the green value of every pixel in my image, and this is the blue value of every image in my pixel. Pixel in my image. Did I really say pixel image in my pixel? That's weird. Anyway, so what we're going to do is we're going to create a new one by clicking right here, and then paste by pressing Ctrl V. So essentially, we just have a black and white image that we version of this image right here in our channels now. You might ask, why do we do this? Well, because Photoshop has a functionality. By the way, it's moved, as you might see. So we have to move to the left. So we have to move it back, like that. Let's see. This. This is good. Let's see. Can I move it up or down? Yeah, that's how it's supposed to be. I don't know why sometimes it moves the image. Anyway, it moves it to the middle. So we get this image. Why did we do this? If you press Control click on a layer normally, so let's go back to this layer. See, adding this alpha channel didn't do anything. When I Control click on the image right there, so I hold Control and I click, I select all the pixels in my layer. See that? When I do that with an alpha channel, I get something different. So deselect. I select the white value of every pixel. So if we go back here and I would show you what that would look like on a empty layer, it would look like this. So as you can see, I have the whole white value right now. So this is sort of a weird way of selecting only one gray value. So if I'm able to get the background to be white and the rest of the image to be dark or black, I can very easily select my white values. And the reason why we want to do this is because we can sort of threshold, so make all the grays black and put the threshold very close to white. So the way we're going to do this is press Control L or go to Edit, or Image Adjustment, Levels, and here we see a histogram of our values. So we have primarily these gray values, some lighter grays, and then a lot of white values. So what we're going to do is we're going to make everything, because we see this blob here, make everything left to this point white. And now every gray value here will be black. So we change, so everything that's here now is normally gray. Now everything will become black, as you can see. Now of course, because there's some pretty bright stuff in here, we'd have to get it all the way over here to catch everything. But we can do a pretty big part of the job like that. Now we can select sort of the center value by moving this slider. We can get a pretty good image like that. So now all we have to do is just take a black brush, for example, like that, and just get rid of all the white speckles in here. And right now, as you might notice, there's a lot of highlights that are actually left over, which I'm just going to get rid of, like that. You see around the edge here. But for some images, this is actually a pretty good result. You can get much better results than this, what I have right now. And the best part is that you get this, you can get this very smooth flow from dark to light values. Where sometimes if you have, for example, hair or whatever, it might be really hard to get the edges right. And this way you can actually work great with those smooth gradients. So let's just finish this up real quick. And I'll show you what that would look like. So as you can see, you can do this quite roughly because it's primarily on the inside. It's not the best result for this one. Actually, for this specific image, Magic Wand tool gave by far the fastest result, but you will see that there are a lot of situations where the Magic Wand tool will not work. It will just not do the job, and you need a different method. And maybe for now this technique is not better, but you can get some great results with this. I will show you a couple of examples where this is true. So I'm almost done here. Let's just finish this up. So now I'm done. I have this. I just control click on this layer and I see I have the white. I go back to my Iron Man. I just press delete. Voila. Now it might very well be that you have this sort of edge right here that you don't like. You can get rid of that by simply clicking on the layer, control click. So you have your selection. Then you go to select, modify, contract. So you just contract it by 1 pixel, so it becomes 1 pixel smaller. If I zoom in, you can see it, that it's now on the inside. If you want, you can go modify and feather it by 1 pixel, which makes it a little bit smooth around the edges. You press Control I to invert it, delete. And if you zoom in now, you can see that there's a pretty smooth gradient. Flows very well into the background. And voila, we have our Iron Man cutout, which is pretty great. So now the question is, we have seen these results. What might be other techniques to cut out images? Now for this Iron Man image, it was easy because we had a white background, but it's very well possible that we have something else. And let me just make my image for myself. A real simple image that might be a problem. So let's say we have this image. I just have to create a little like that. Maybe let's put a, we'll just look at some situations. Put a big black dot in there, so like that. So let's say this is my image and I want to cut this out. Now obviously I have a problem that there's not a hard line. So let's see what will happen if I do this. So I just use my Magic Wand tool and press delete. So what you see is that it just set up a tolerance, and I still have white. So this is not a way to go. Now cutting out obviously doesn't work also. So we have to come up with a new layer, way to do this. And we can try our other method. So just sort of select this layer, and obviously when we do this, create a new alpha layer, it will be not in the same spot, which kind of sucks. So a good workaround is to just put some things in the corner, some white over there, which increases the size of this image so that if we paste it here, it's on the right spot. It's just a little cheat, don't worry too much about it. Just click on this, so we selected our whites. We can go here and press delete. Now as you can see, it worked quite well, but there's still some white in there. You can see that better if we fill up a black background. See, it left over some whites. It's because it only partially deleted the white, but that doesn't mean that the white is gone. It just means that it sort of smoothly got rid of it. So this might work for some cases, but it doesn't always. So let me just revert this, get rid of these weird things that I put here. What might be another way to do this? There's actually a perfect way to do it in this case, which is only possible if I have a black thing in here. And you go to your layer style here, it's normal. You go to darken. As you can see, oh, it's sort of weird. I don't know why it does that. Is that aliasing? No, it actually works quite well. It does this great weird curve there. Maybe that's the. Let's see. Oh, you can use this one. Multiply, for example. See that? That works great. Sometimes you have to figure out which one gives you the best result. It depends on the content. So in this case, multiply works quite well. Sometimes others work well. I'm just randomly skipping through them, but multiply seems to work quite well here. Gives us our black dot. And it's possible because if we take darken, which is a little bit more, makes a little bit more sense. What it basically does is it takes the darkness information, so it sort of extracts how dark it is. And for black things, it works perfectly because I have nothing white left. None of my white pixels or white pixel information is left. However, this doesn't work if, for example, this dot is gray or dark red. So let's see what that looks like. Change this back to normal. Let's make a new layer and do it there. Just turn this one off for a second. Make it white. Make it red, for example, a little bit dark red. Let's try to do this one. Now, if we do this one, we do darken. As you can see, first of all, it becomes black, and it's also sort of translucent, depending on which color. So sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't work at all. If we try multiply, for example, we just get black and different colors if we go here. So this doesn't really seem to work that much. We could try to go for other options. But if this were to happen, I would really, if you would have this sort of cases, there are some things you could do, but it would generally involve manipulating the image. So, for example, we could make this one black. So let's say I copy this layer, for example, I desaturate it. Oh, that was not supposed to happen. Oh, I turned on some windows. Turn on narrate, I don't know why, but let's go to, sorry for that. We could go and desaturate, for example. Where is it? I can't find it. Black and white. It's called black and white. Why can't I find it? Black and white. So just make it black and white like that. Then you can go to the levels again. you might notice that it's not working quite well. So there's no white, there's no black here. So just do it like that. We have our black. And we might want to try to see if we can combine these two somehow. So for example, what we could do is try to see, what we could do is we can, for example, we can invert this layer. Now, what we do is we select it again. We go to our channels. Let's delete this one. Let's fill this one up with dark information. Control click this one so we have the brightest information. Figure out what color this is. We go to our color palette. We click this color here and just create a new layer and just design it for ourselves. So what you see, we just recreated the image. You see, that's a perfect result. Again, these are sort of tactics that involve being smart, and this generally works with logos, not with everything. So what I will do now is I will look up another image that poses a challenge, and we'll show you how I would go about cutting it out. So see you in a second. So we're back. I now provided you with this cool Tony Stark image, or actually Robert Downey Jr. It's a little bit smaller, but it still works fine. So as you can see, we have a person here, and there's this weird glow in the edge, and his hair is, of course, sort of vaguely defined. So this this sort of image forces us to come up with different tactics. Now, if you were to ask me, okay, how would you go about this? I would sort of approach this as a cutout that has many different problems to it, or many different sections that require its own solution. So we could easily use the alpha channel mode for cutting this one out, because we have, for example, blue. So we could just take the blue information and use that to cut out the rest, because there's blue is strongest in here. Or I could take every other color. So we go to our channels, for example, just look at our red channel, or a green channel, or a blue channel. Let's just turn off this right here. What you can see is that what we're looking for is one that has very pronounced edges, and see if we can differentiate. So for example, here we can see that we have a quite confident border, but here it transitions. So we might want to say, okay, let's just do everything here below using one methodology, and do the error using another one. So why not take this, clean this for a second, paste it, and see if we can work with this. So let's go to, you could do the levels. Let's see levels. Let's look, where are we? So let's see, okay. So when I do this, you can see these two are the same. So I want to make sure that right here is about as far as we can go. So I can't lose the line on the face right there. Try to see what happens if I do this. That kind of works. So this is a pretty decent job. Then let's just keep it like this for a second. Let's fill this whole thing up here with black. So this change the hardness back. So right now I'm sort of getting rid of this white because we want the outside Now obviously the face isn't much different from the outside, but remember, we only need the edges. The inside is easy. So the face here isn't the biggest problem. We could just trace the face quite easily using a normal brush. Follow this one down. Same goes here. So what we do essentially is we say, okay, now I have sort of I combine different strategies to make separate parts of this image easier for me. Now I have luck that the hair is already somewhat black in there, so I can just fill this one up. So I'm just left with the ear at this point. So I have to do this a little bit more precisely, and I fear I'm going to have to use this tool right here to sort of try to figure out where the line is, because obviously in the green colors aren't too specific for this. But this, see, it's only small parts, so we're done quite quickly. So, oh, I missed a part here. So what you can see is that we are quite quickly done with a big part of the image. Now the troublesome part here is the hair. So what I propose is sort of using this for the bottom side and try to see if we can combine this with another. Oh, this is wrong. We want this one. So just get the white to be white, like that. Select this layer. Go here, go to original Tony Stark. We have to move it. It moved. Let's see. You can just use the arrow keys here. If you do, if this happens, just press Control Z. You have to make sure that this tool is selected. So now we can press Delete. As you can see, we have this sort of blue edge here, which is kind of okay, but this is a problem. We don't want this, so let's make sure that does not happen, and just grab an eraser and just by hand start by cutting this part out. So I actually missed the ear there. So and we have to get rid of that. So now we have to do this. Well, now we can see that there's a big contrast between red values and blue values, because there's actually hardly any blue. So let's go to our alpha channel and see if we can, if one of these layers can actually be used to. The hair is pretty pronounced here compared to the rest. So let's take this blue layer and let's just get everything to be black, paste it in there. Now let's see, and I'm going to use curves to get a little bit more of a smooth flow in here. It's essentially the same as the levels, like that, but you can actually define how it flows. So I'm just going to look at where's this gray value. So I'm right here is where the outside is, and this is where it gets darker. So I wanted to get this one to be roughly over there, to see if I can capture the transfer. See that? Where the hair starts to get dark? Just try to see if we can catch this where this one flows. Yes. And if this doesn't work, let's just see if we can move this one up a little bit. And again, the most important thing here is that we capture the white around the face, because that's the most important part here. So try to get as much hair filled in something like this looks kind of okay. What I now just have to do is take my brush again, make it a little bit smaller, and just roughly fill in these spaces. Now what you can do is cheat a little by making the hardness a little bit softer to sort of get that ID in there. Change the hardness back, just fill this one up, and now finish this one off. So let's see, we have to make sure this is all white. And now we can control click this so we have a white selection. And we can use this once placed properly, which, oh my god, you gotta be kidding me. Ooh. We gotta move this one back. I think probably somewhere over here. Well, we could use this. Normally you would do some effort to make sure that this is aligned and that this doesn't happen, but for now it's okay. And what we can do is just grab an eraser and sort of make it small and sort of gently erase this area right here. As you can see, it doesn't quite give us the perfect result. But it's, for first approximation, it's actually quite good. It's not too shabby, so to say. We can just sort of get rid of these blue edges right here. Now, of course, the problem comes with the background. So, for example, let's say we turn this one back on. You know, because the hair is blue, you actually don't really notice it that much. But if it's green, you start noticing it a little bit more. So how can we optimize this? Let's just give us a more neutral background. Something gray. Maybe you want to go for something red so we can see it very well. So what we see is we see this blue glow that is bothering us. So this is not that easy of a problem to solve. What we essentially need is the information of this blueness right here. So what we have to think, or the approach that you have to have, is sort of think, okay, how can I get the blue information? And if I can get the blue information on a black and white channel, I can use you can use alpha channels to select it and to get rid of it. So what we could do as an experiment is just copy this layer, put something in the background for a while, so a gray layer, something like this. And what you can do is you can go and click on this layer and then go to color mode. And as you can see, it projects the color onto the layer behind. So we want this to be gray, not white, because white is all the colors, black is no colors. Gray sort of allows it to modify it. Now let's go to our channels. Let's go to our blue channel, for example. As we can see, it sort of sticks out. So maybe if we get this one a little bit darker, gray, maybe a little bit more. Doesn't really give us much better result. Maybe we can just use this. So what we do is let's say, okay, or use this darkness is perhaps even better. See this, how this is dark? Just use this. So let's take this layer, put it on a new alpha channel. Did it work? No. Let's do it again. Let's select everything, Control C. See what happens. Why doesn't it allow me to do this? What is going on? Why don't you? What has he got in his mouth? Why does it look so weird? That looks weird, doesn't it? What is that? I'm wondering. Oh, he had money in his mouth, that's true. Okay, so let's go back here. So why can't we just Hey. Why don't you work? Let's try it like that. Does that work? On a black layer. Probably have to make my background black. Select this one. Fill it up with white. Ah. Like a charm. Exactly what we want. So, go to your channels, and what we can see here is that this darkness is somewhere over there. So if we can get this, look at that, look at that, get the rest white, and there we have it, our black information, or blue information if you will. That's what we need. See that? So we have this nice sort of transition here. So we just have to sort of isolate that for a second. Now these are a bit tough to get rid of, so we just use a white brush. Now you might say, do we have the right part, because we want the blue part that we want to erase to be white, right? We don't want it to be black. We can easily invert this layer. Make black, white, white, black. It's not that hard. Oh, wrong tool selected. I'm just using the brush now to sort of get rid of the parts that we don't want to get rid of. Which is of course that which is blue, but which is still its jacket. So we have successfully selected this. So now what we just do, if we invert this, we press Control click, we go to original layer, turn these off, and as we can see, we have this blue selected. Oh, wrong layer. We have this blue selected, so we can delete it. So actually, you see we have the worst. We got rid of the worst. Now it's still blue, of course, but that's his hair. We cannot get rid of his hair like that. It's just light casted on his hair. So what we could do is to cheat us out of there. Is just go to your brush tool, color replacement tool, select the color of his hair, and just sort of go over it like that. Make it a little bit smaller. So this is sort of a cheaty way to fix the color, because we're not gonna get that hair to be perfect. Now you might say that his hair is a little bit blocky now, but usually over most backgrounds you can't really notice. See, it's just, I mean, you can never get that soft line anyway. So it's as soft as you can be. You could even go and perhaps feather it by some maybe 2 pixels, I don't know. Invert the layer, grab an eraser and just erase some of the edges off like that, which gives you this result, which might be a little bit more satisfactory, but this is how I would go about solving these kinds of problems, which is think, okay, what do I know about this layer? What is different from what I want to get rid of than the rest? And if it's possible, you could try various manipulation techniques to isolate that and cut out your image. And I hope this helped you, and I'll see you next time.